I would appraise this book actually at about $40,000.
Let me tell you, you are lucky.
You probably saved my job.
Well, you can thank me with some chocolate or something.
Being composed, intelligent, and trusted by Rick Harrison himself, Rebecca Romney appeared to be the ideal rare book specialist on Pawn Stars. However, everything changed in 2014. The presentation featured a $40,000 stolen book. Fallen book. The FBI then intervened and asked Rebecca how the stolen books ended up on national television. She abruptly left the show in January 2015 without giving a reason. No formal declaration, no farewell. We're revealing today what actually transpired behind the scenes and the reasons the truth was suppressed for so long. On April 6, 1985, Rebecca Romney was born in Phoenix, Arizona, a warm desert city. Nothing in her life at the time suggested that she had any rare books or manuscripts worth millions of dollars. She even made a joke about old books being dull artifacts for elderly males. She aspired to become a translator or philosopher. She enjoyed serious discussions, languages, and ideas. Matters unrelated to the auction industry she would eventually rule. She thought she would spend her entire life in classrooms when she enrolled in college at the age of 18. She was proficient in 5.5 languages by the age of 22. She studied for 12 hours a day to learn English, French, Japanese, Latin, ancient Greek, and even some Old English. For a university test, she once translated a Greek papyrus from 300 BC and did everything flawlessly. Her abilities would eventually help her identify frauds that might have cost collectors millions of dollars, and the professors were horrified. She attended Brigham Young University to study philosophy and classical studies from 2003 to 2007. Rebecca was busy discussing free will in 4-hour courses and deciphering ancient books in their original forms while her classmates were selecting safer majors. She completed extra coursework, achieved a flawless GPA, and received awards for graduating. Comparing Greek fragments of Plato's Republic from the 2nd century was the focus of her thesis. This odd combination of ancient language and philosophy was preparing her for something amazing, but no one realized it at the time. She made a mistake that altered her life in 2007, just after graduating. Rebecca applied at Bauman Rare Books in Philadelphia for what she believed to be a simple management position. However, she discovered she had misread the job posting when she arrived for the interview. She had no knowledge of the rare book specialist for whom it was intended. She nearly left. Rather, she remained, acknowledged her lack of expertise, and was hired nevertheless. They were drawn to her language abilities, and that was sufficient. She handled books worth more than most homes in a matter of months. She was thrust into a world where one mistake could cost her a fortune, including a 1623 Shakespeare folio, a page from the Gutenberg Bible, and the first editions of Isaac Newton's Principia Mathematica. 3 years later, in 2010, she was elevated to the position of gallery manager in Las Vegas. Her age was 26. She was the youngest senior director in the company's history by 2013, when she was 29 years old. She was in charge of catalogs, auctions, and private sales worth over $10 million annually in that capacity. For a book printed in 1472, one of her clients paid $300,000. She wasn't only skilled at selling, she was also spotting fakes that others couldn't. Rebecca Romney was not discovered by Rick Harrison during a casting call. He was previously acquainted with her. She started working for Bauman Rare Books when they launched a Las Vegas office back in 2007. By 2010, she was in charge of the establishment. When Rick started Gold and Silver Ponds in 1989, there wasn't much of a rare book and antique scene in Vegas. Mutual contacts and a shared fascination with history brought them together at local gatherings. Therefore, Rick didn't ask producers to find an expert when he required someone who actually understood old paper, not just books, but documents, signatures, and handwriting. He grabbed the phone and dialed her number. As a result of the conversation, she made her debut on Pawn Stars in 2011 as a person who was already trusted off-camera rather than as a paid TV personality. After filming, they became friends. Fans were unaware that the composed, bookish expert on film wasn't simply a good fit, even though they went on double dates. She was chosen by hand. She was given a stack of documents from the Civil War when she appeared in front of the camera for the first time in Season 4 on April 4, 2011. One of them was an 1861 Confederate bond worth $5,000 if it was authentic. She looked at the ink, the texture of the paper, and even the printing technique. She revealed a fake signature in less than 10 minutes, reducing the value from $10,000 to a few $100s. The audience was riveted to the screen. As the cameras rolled, she spoke confidently and subtly double-checked things. She wasn't simply another guest expert at the end of the broadcast. She was the book lady and the star of the show. Ratings increased by 15%. From then on, Rebecca was the person the pawn store called whenever they received anything made of paper, books, letters, or historical papers. She made about 30 appearances between 2011 and 2020, with the first 4 years being her busiest. She valued everything from an original broadside of the Declaration of Independence valued at $15,000 to a $2,000 duplicate of a letter sent by Christopher Columbus in 1493. She astounded everyone in 2013 when she verified notes that were discovered to be connected to Edgar Allan Poe and concealed within a book that was believed to be worthless. She even handled documents pertaining to the slave trade in the 19th century and described how to assign value to something so strongly associated with suffering and the past. She was performing about 3/4 of the show's critiques pertaining to the paper by 2014. She had some difficult calls. At one point, she disproved a phony Shakespeare folio that someone thought was worth $10,000. No, it wasn't. It wasn't just her knowledge that set her apart. It was the way she said it. Rebecca never spoke loudly. She never appeared shaken. She might sound like she was casually telling what's for lunch while sharing something shocking, such that a $50,000 book was a part of an 1800s forgery ring. That turned into her thing. She maintained composure and clarity as other experts displayed their excitement. Chumley nearly lost his job in 2012 because he purchased a book without doing any research. A signed copy of Charles Lindbergh's 1927 autobiography, We, cost him $500. Subsequently unintentionally dubbed him Mark Lindbergh. Everyone at the store believed it to be a phony. Rick even threatened to permanently remove Chumley's next day off if the signature didn't match. Once more, Rebecca Romney took over. She produced an authenticated copy and contrasted the signature, highlighting how Lindbergh's autograph style evolved with his rise to fame. As it happens, it was real. It was worth $1,500 to her, quadrupled Chumley's purchase price. In addition to making a healthy profit, it prevented Chumley from losing his job. A near catastrophe became one of his infrequent victories with a single little signature. Another occasion, someone claimed to be worth a fortune and brought in what appeared to be revolutionary war bonds. But the truth was even stranger when Rebecca looked more closely. These weren't groundbreaking. They were Confederate. And they weren't merely uncommon. They had vanished. Following the conclusion of the Civil War in 1865, these records had disappeared. They were connected to the USS Republic, a ship that sank in a hurricane that same year, carrying stolen Southern assets. Some of the wreck's rusted contents had been retrieved by 2005 after it was found in 2003. That history included these ties. They had legal issues, but they might have been worth $50,000. Selling stolen goods could put the store in legal hot water. The police were called. Rebecca's thorough investigation prevented the store from purchasing something that could have resulted in legal action, demonstrating that history can have repercussions. Then there was the occasion when someone believed they had struck gold with a 1623 First Folio of Shakespeare. Millions of dollars have been spent on actual copies of that book. In 2020, one even brought in $9.98 million. Rebecca looked at the seller's copy and saw that it was flawed, despite its stunning appearance. The ink appeared too clean, the paper didn't age properly, and it lacked the minute imperfections that authentic books that are 400 years old always have. She thought it was a fake, perhaps influenced by the deceptive collection created by Thomas Pavier and William Jaggard in 1619, known as the False Folio. Although those are also valuable, this one wasn't. The store might have lost hundreds of dollars if Rick had purchased it. They avoided one of the most expensive errors in Pawn Stars history because to her keen observation. However, there were occasions when the objects were equally potent and as real as they could be. That's what happened when a copy of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species was brought in. On its first day of publication, November 24, 1859, the book sold out. There were only 1,250 copies produced. Rebecca recognized it as legitimate after glancing at the schematics, the advertisements from June 1859, and the green cloth binding. It was worth $75,000 to her. It is impossible to overestimate Darwin's book's influence. It permanently changed both religion and science. Newton and Copernicus hadn't even shocked people like that. A few copies have sold for more than $500,000, particularly those that contain Darwin's personal notes. Later editions don't have quite the same value. For instance, Darwin's Strange Whale Bear account was cut out in the 1,862nd edition, which is only worth about $9,500. However, everything changed with that initial printing, and most collectors dream of finding something like this one, which was sitting in the store. She gained popularity among fans between 2011 and 2015, particularly after she reviewed a first edition of Frankenstein in an episode that sparked heated debates on internet forums. Both the book and the response it caused were worth $20,000. She became known as the Book Whisperer, and she amassed tens of thousands of followers in no time. She should have more screen time, viewers pleaded the producers. A spin-off was even requested by some. Behind the scenes, however, things weren't always flawless. One of the most bizarre and unnerving theories about Pawn Stars was subtly sparked by an episode that aired in 2014. A man entered the pawn shop that dealt in gold and silver. Claims to own a unique Book of Mormon version from 1841. After closely examining it, Rebecca Romney, the show's rare book specialist, determined its approximate value to be $40,000. However, the seller demanded $100,000. Rick Harrison was able to purchase it for just $24,000 after some haggling. At first glance, it appeared to be another excellent bargain for the store. Then, however, things began to fall apart. There were rumors that the book had been taken from the University of Utah Marriott Library. Federal officials reportedly intervened shortly after the episode aired. These tales claim that the FBI took the book and fled the pawn store empty-handed. No charges were made public, and no formal statement was ever released. But Reddit posts and YouTube videos helped the tale take off. Additionally, it was reported that federal authorities questioned Rebecca Romney in late 2014, around the time the FBI allegedly became involved. The agents reportedly wanted to know how historical texts that had been stolen might appear on national television without causing a stir. This was not a unique instance. The FBI had already given back stolen volumes to Sweden's National Library in 2015. Forbes Smiley had already been arrested in 2005 and 2006 for stealing rare maps valued at millions of dollars. Although Romney was never charged with any wrongdoing, several people think the interrogation had a significant impact on her. She was well known for evaluating thousands of dollars worth of books with assurance. Her judgment was now clouded. January 10th, 2015 followed. In what would be her final Pawn Stars appearance, Rebecca Romney evaluated a 1734 pirate book. Rick, as usual, haggled the price down to $400, even though she said it was worth $1,000. She vanished in an instant. There was no farewell after 19 episodes and 4 years on the show. Wow. Her absence was not explained by the History Channel. Questions flooded the forums. Had she lost her job? Was the scandal involved? Some even thought that she had left because of a personal tragedy. Others brought up the show's mounting criticism, allegations of phony appraisals, arranged transactions, and internal disputes. Fans, however, saw something strange. Rebecca Romney never deleted Pawn Stars off her LinkedIn profile, despite her disappearance from the show. She continues to identify herself as their specialist in rare books. From 2011 to the present, some people think it's merely marketing. Some believe it could be a clause in a non-disclosure agreement. In any case, it continues to associate her with a program on which she hasn't made frequent appearances in years. She relocated to Philadelphia in 2016. It was for a promotion officially. She departed the Las Vegas gallery to take a position as senior director of Bauman Rare Books, where she oversaw catalogs and library purchases. Later, she worked in Brooklyn before relocating to Washington, D.C., where she co-founded a brand new rare book business. Even though her leaving had a completely valid purpose, there were still questions about the timing. Why was the decision made only a few months after the Book of Mormon controversy? Was there more going on behind closed doors, or was it just job advancement? Fans saw her for the first time in 2022. She returned to the cast of Pawn Stars Do America in Washington, D.C. for a special episode and evaluated an additional pirated book. Her relationship with the team remained unchanged. She made fun of Chumley. She told Corey a joke. Mom. However, it just added to the confusion surrounding her protracted disappearance. Rebecca Romney married a man who loved literature as much as she did in 2016. J.P. Romney, who writes and studies history. The narrative was rendered extra stranger by the fact that J.P. had a family connection to one of the most well-known figures in American politics. Mitt Romney, who campaigned for president in 2012 and received almost half of the country's votes, was distantly related to him. Rebecca became somewhat associated with a dynasty through this marriage, which included George Romney, the former governor of Michigan. They served from 1963 until 1969. She has never met Mitt Romney, though, in spite of all these connections. Although it was far away, the connection was genuine. Names are more important than relationships. Her notoriety from Pawn Stars was still relatively new at the time. From 2011 until 2015, she appeared on the show, even evaluating a rare map from 1507 that was valued at $1 million. However, the marriage terminated in 2023. JP was now her ex-husband, and admirers started to wonder if politics had ever been involved in her path. However, Rebecca maintained that she was solely responsible for her own journey in the rare book industry. After being married, she and JP co-wrote a book that surprised everyone. March 14, 2017 saw the publication of Printer's Error, irreverent stories from book history. It wasn't a simple read. The book's 368 pages revealed odd, overlooked instances in the history of printing. There were tales of counterfeit Galileo's manuscripts, Charles Dickens' copyright battle in the 1840s, and even the enigma surrounding the 1455 Gutenberg Bible, which never specifically named Gutenberg. There are only 48 copies of one Bible left, tens of millions for each. The book successfully blended JP's storytelling with Rebecca's practical experience. It was appreciated by critics. Strong sales gave her a respected voice outside of the screen, something that few reality TV stars are able to achieve. In that same year, JP had recently released his own book, The Monster on the Road Is Me, while Rebecca was still well known for her 2013 Pawn Stars appraisal of a $100,000 Shakespeare folio. The project was one of their final public partnerships, but it also represented a creative high point for them both. Rebecca has drawn a clear line despite the public's interest in her marriage and its potential political repercussions. She hardly ever mentions the Romney name. She stated unequivocally in a 2023 interview that she has never even met Mitt. It is very evident how far apart they are on a personal and professional level. Her two children's names and ages are not made public. Fans have also noted how little she is ready to say, even if she maintains the Romney name professionally. She dismissed inquiries about love and fame in a fan Q&A. Her personal life finally came into focus when Printer's Error was released. It was about the work even back then, not the union. In 2020, she edited the science fiction anthology Projections, making sure that the stories, not herself, were the main focus. Some people think that by keeping quiet, she is avoiding political ramifications, particularly in a world where rare books might introduce her to collectors from various backgrounds. Not only did Rebecca Romney quit reality TV, but she had a plan. She co-founded Type Punch Matrix, a rare book company in Silver Spring, Maryland, in 2019 after working for Pawn Stars for years. This was no small antique store nestled in a corner. It was a declaration. She and her partner, Brian Cassidy, created a company that defied all expectations in the antique industry. They had more than simply costly inventory. It was audacious. Shakespearean folios, Bible leaves from the Gutenberg press, and titles that weren't simply uncommon but revolutionary. In less than a year, they were selling to high-end customers, moving items valued at hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. Additionally, Rebecca distinguished out in a field dominated by older men because she was incisive, outspoken, and not scared to question the rules. Her disobedience, however, began earlier. She co-founded the Honey and Wax Book Collecting Prize with Heather O'Donnell in 2017. Women under 30 who had assembled the most unique and unexpected book collections were awarded $1,000 annually. The cost of the books didn't matter to them. How much they meant mattered to them. In 2023, a tattoo artist's hybrid plant pieces won. In 2024, a national security expert with a military-themed set took first place. Something had caught Rebecca's attention. Although they were reluctant to identify as collectors, women had a strong interest for collecting. That was altered by this reward. With the support of Biblio and Christie's, it provided them with recognition, self-assurance, and a legitimate position in the rare book industry. It has inspired innumerable women and recognized 9 by 2025. Another change occurred in the same year. On February 18th, Rebecca published Jane Austen's Bookshelf, which was more than just a book. It was a thunderbolt of literature. It plunged into what she dubbed the Great Forgetfulness, the erasure of Austen's world's female writers from history. Anne Radcliffe, Charlotte Smith, and Frances Burney. In the past, these women had thousands of print runs and were best-selling names. The majority of their work is currently out of print. Rebecca's investigation revealed that, compared to 40% of novels written by men in the 18th century, just 15% of novels written by women have survived to this day. She presented the evidence, book by book and number by number, rather than merely naming the issue. Readers paid attention. The New York Times described it as bold and incisive. It was exciting, according to the Washington Post. The Guardian described it as energetic and instinctive. It sold more than 20,000 copies in a few weeks, and what most surprised people, Rebecca acknowledged that the majority of the ladies she was writing about were unknown to her. Not even when she worked as a rare book dealer or while pursuing her degree. Although Austen had read Charlotte Lennox and Maria Edgeworth, she had never done so. She had read the men, Richardson, and Fielding. She was struck with the realization these voices had been subtly silenced throughout her entire schooling. How many other people would have missed it if she hadn't noticed it? So she began to gather. She started looking for original copies written by the women who influenced Austen in 2015. Evelina by Frances Burney, 1728. The Mysteries of Udolpho by Radcliffe, published in 1794. Emmeline by Charlotte Smith, 1788. It was difficult to locate these. Because they were written by women, many were misinterpreted or passed off as sentimental or frivolous. She scoured through estates, flew to auctions, and once fought buyers for a copy of Charlotte Lennox's Female Quixote from 1759. Her collection had expanded to more than 50 rare books by 2025, all of which were resurrections. She did more than merely gather. Those books were her proof. She kept note of how many survived, how many were printed, and how critics responded to them. She discovered that the likelihood of women's literature being preserved, republished, or taught in schools was significantly lower. Radcliffe's work was excluded from the canon despite the fact that she served as an inspiration to Poe, Shelley, and the entire Gothic tradition. In the 18th century, Frances Burney sold 3,000 copies, but vanished by 1850. Additionally, Wordsworth's career was influenced by Charlotte Smith's poetry, but she eventually fell into near obscurity. Rebecca demonstrated that sexism wasn't limited to reviews by using these tendencies. It was ingrained in literature's ability to endure. The narrative of Rebecca Romney doesn't start in an old library. It starts beneath the neon lights of a pawn shop in Las Vegas, where she made her broadcast debut as an expert on rare books. However, she managed to get into the most exclusive circles of American bibliophilia despite her odd origins. The Grolier Club in New York is one of them. It is the oldest and most prestigious book collectors association in the nation, having been established in 1884. Only 825 individuals worldwide are eligible to identify as members. However, Rebecca will be visiting in May 2025 to give a talk called Jane Austen's Bookshelf, Collecting as Investigation. That conversation started in 2023 when she happened upon a Victorian version of Frances Burney's Evelina. Everything changed because of that book. It steered her in the direction of identifying the women who influenced Austen but were largely excluded from the canon. She is narrating more than simply literary history. She is now revising it. She has also been a mainstay of the antiquarian book seminars since 2015. Over 100 aspiring rare book traders come to study from her each year. She informs them that the world of rare books isn't always pure, which is something that most people seldom hear. She discusses the 1930s Thomas J. Wise forgeries candidly. Over 50 phony first editions were involved in the scam which deceived specialists for decades. She demonstrates how collecting is about discovering rather than merely possessing. She teaches more than just market worth. They make the secret fingerprints of writers who history has forgotten visible. One of such writers was Burney, whose book from 1778 helped create Pride and Prejudice and sold 500 copies in its first printing. People are starting to realize that because of Rebecca's work. Additionally, she is altering the authentication process for rare books. She was a co-founder of Type Punch Matrix in 2019, but it was more than simply another book company. By 2023, she was utilizing blockchain and artificial intelligence to verify provenance, using a $50,000 Sylvia Plath manuscript as a test case. Ownership of the software could be traced back to 1956. This was no chance leap. It developed from the scam she revealed in her 2017 book printer's error, which explored the history of counterfeit books, including the 1840s counterfeit Gutenberg Bibles. By 2022, she was collaborating with digital companies to create tools that were unthinkable for most collectors. Among these were spectral ink scanners, which are 95% accurate at identifying forgeries, things that even the human eye would overlook. She didn't keep these instruments locked away, and in 2024, one of them discovered a counterfeit letter from Columbus from 1493. She invited them to attend her workshops. In just the last year, more than 200 dealers were trained to utilize them. All people had access to techniques that were previously only available at the Smithsonian. She even began developing virtual reality simulations that let users interact with rare books virtually without ever having to touch the actual ones. It's transformation rather than only preservation. Her aspirations, however, did not end there. She plans to develop Type Punch Matrix into museum consultancy by 2025. Since its modest $100,000 launch in 2019, the business has valued more than 1,000 rare artifacts with a combined market value of over $10 million. Among them was a manuscript from the 16th century that was displayed at the 2023 Boston Book Fair. Another was the record-breaking sale of 2,000 romance novels for $250,000 in 16 hours in 2022, which she assisted the Lilly Library in acquiring. These are declarations rather than merely commercial successes. Getting underrepresented voices into institutional collections is the main emphasis of her current consulting. She assisted in organizing an exhibition in 2024 that highlighted Black writers of the 18th century. There are currently 10 members of her Silver Spring team. Through museum agreements alone, her consultancy strategy might generate $2 million annually if it is successful.